Greetings. Thank you for joining us today as we explore projects, gems, and apps. If you're like most AI users, you've learned some tricks for AI prompting. Those tricks include things like acting as a specific thing. One of my favorites is a research librarian. 2, and here you describe the objective. Act as a research librarian to locate 10 peer-reviewed journal articles on online learning, and then provide the results in this way. Provide citation in APA format, URL where I can access that particular resource, and give me a 1-paragraph summary of that. But if you want AI to do more, today's session is for you, because we're going to be talking about using AI through customized assistants. So let me share a little bit about what customized assistants are. Customized assistants are persistent AI workspaces that are tailored to specific tasks. They're pre-configured with instructions, knowledge, and context, and these can help it maintain consistency across multiple interactions. Another thing that this can do for you is you can share these with other users, including other students. Why would you use something like a customized AI assistant? This can help save time on repetitive tasks. You can maintain consistency, and in some cases, it helps you organize resources that the AI that you're interacting with can use as a source of truth and to help guide its output that you're wanting to create. There are 3 ways that I want to discuss today these customized AI assistants. 3 different methods, 3 different tools. First is ChatGPT projects. Second is the gems in Gemini. And then third, apps. And that's going to be a bonus because that is more on the cutting edge. So let's talk about ChatGPT projects for a bit. So ChatGPT projects conceptually act like a folder to organize resources. It helps, as you know, ChatGPT is now allowed to retain memory of past things. Well, what this does in the project is it creates a persistent memory space within the conversations that are specific and contained within that project. This helps maintain context better, helps maintain or reduce drift a little bit, I find. You can give the project custom instructions that apply to all chats in that project. So rather than trying to use the prompt to give specific instructions, your prompts can be more generalized because they're constrained by the custom instructions that run for the entire project. And you can upload files that remain accessible to all of the chats within that project. Next, I'm going to talk about Google Gems. Google Gems is different than a project, although they do have similarities. But the gem is a standalone workspace that integrates Google Workspace. So if you are a Google Power user, gems are probably going to be a real favorite of yours because you can connect your gems to your Google Workspace, and this gives you the opportunity to use files from your Google Workspace in the gems. It's kind of a time saver, and it's conceptually a very interesting approach to do that. So that is what I would say is the main thing that I find attractive for Google users about Google Gems. The next thing is you do have real-time web access for current information. So if you want to integrate that in, you certainly can in the Google Gem. And it does have multimodal capabilities, text, images, and coding if you're into that sort of thing. Now let's talk about some practical tips for those of you who are wanting to try using some of these particular tools, these customized tools. First thing I'm going to say is you're going to start small. I've tried complicated ones and I get messed up, so you start small and build from there. The next thing, I find it very helpful if you document everything. I keep a separate Word file and I try to document every prompt that I'm giving these AI assistants in the order that I give them, along with my thoughts at the time if I'm working well with that. Sometimes I forget to put the thoughts down, but that gives me some context to go back to if I need to go back a step, if I want to replicate what I've been doing in the particular AI assistant that I'm working on. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some examples. of what you can do with these, or some examples that you might try. In the Google or in the ChatGPT projects, I've used it conceptually as a course development assistant. So I use the projects to manage all of the interactions that I want to have with ChatGPT while I'm doing a course development. So you can do things like use the AI as a thinking partner, not just as a writing tool. You can actually have a conversation with the ChatGPT large language model in helping you conceptualize what you're wanting to do. You can use it to find OER resources. You can then import those OER resources into the project. And then you can do things like have the ChatGPT project analyze the OER resource that you've given it and ask it to extract learning objectives that are articulated with the course outcomes that you've created or given to the project. And then you can have it work on helping you create active learning experiences and authentic assessments. You can even build in an AI vulnerability check. So you can say, okay, I've got these assignments. How vulnerable is this particular assignment? And perhaps it's a discussion problem. How vulnerable is it for a student to just use AI to generate this? And how can I improve that to make it less vulnerable to AI? Or you can even say, how can we create something that uses AI in an effective and appropriate way in the particular context that you're working in? You could also think about the ChatGPT project for a solo project manager. You can keep everything related to that project, all the conversations, all of the drafts and resources and research that you've done in that project, in that manager space. And you can use it to build a workflow that will take you from the initial idea through locating research, selecting a conceptual idea to try, comparing that with other models, and then a workflow for integrating that idea into your class or into the project that you're working on, all the way to helping produce a presentation for sharing or even a publication or something like that. So think about that as the folder that contains everything related to that project. Now, Gemini gems, I think about these as agents that you might share with your students. For example, you could create a syllabus and course policy agent. Load all of the documents that you would normally provide to students, and about the instructor, descriptions for each assignment, the syllabus, etc., and then give it the instructions to act as a syllabus resource agent or a policy agent for the class. And then students, instead of asking you by email every week, well, when is this due? Or tell me more about this assignment. They can interact with this gem as an agent to give them the information that they want at their fingertips rather than the onerous task of reading the syllabus and so on. You can also do things like create study guides. The gem could use OER or your lecture notes and other documents to be something that students could interact with. Of course, you can also do that with the LM, right? So that might be a better tool for that, but you could think about it for that. You can also think about this as feedback analysis. You can use, as you give feedback to students on assignments and so on, you can capture that feedback, put it into your gem and ask it to analyze it. This can help you to identify the areas that you're identifying in your assessment of students that they need the most help in. Then you could based on the analysis the gem did, you could get some ideas for some remediation that you might do or providing additional resources to students to support their learning to the point of success in the class. So those are some ideas for the Google Gem. Now the bonus is apps. Apps, I'm going to call these experimental. I would not trust them. I would not base my entire class on an app. I would encourage you, if you're interested in this, to work with Sonia and myself, to try developing an app for your students to use. We have several instructors who are doing this currently, and I think it's something that's really interesting. So it's experimental. An app embeds AI inside a custom interface. So all of the other things that we've talked about previously, the project and gems, you're really interacting with the chatbot. We're used to that and they work okay, but an app allows you to do custom coding of an interface that guides the user's application of the AI in the way that you want to. So I think this is a really exciting area and something that I'd like to see us explore a bit more. So let's take a look at each of these in turn. We're going to start with ChatGPT. So we're going to look at a project. So we have over here, you can see projects here, and I have a variety of projects right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to select new project. You're going to give it a name. You can give it a category if you want, and then you're going to create project. Let's give it a name and create the project. Now you're within a project called test. You can customize this, colors and icons. And what you're going to do here is you're going to give this some instructions. Yeah, project settings, add instructions. You're going to give this instructions such as act as a Scholarship of Teaching and Learning project manager to assist with X, Y, and Z, and so on. So you give it those project instructions. Those instructions then apply for every chat within this particular interaction that you're going to be having. Here you have project settings. Clicking here, your memory by default is the memories from outside chats and vice versa, or you can restrict it to project only. You can only do this one time when you start it. Once you give it instructions or start doing things with it, you can no longer do that. So choose between the two. I've used it both ways, and honestly, I find that I like to use the project from outside chats because I have tuned my version of ChatGPT to interact with me in a way that I like. So I do like to have it remember things that I've worked on before. But if you're wanting to restrict this to just the things that are within the project, you want to select project only. All right, so let's take a look at a project that I've created here. This is an OER course build. So in this OER course build, my instructions are here. You're a course design assistant for a history class that covers the time period from Civil War to the early 2000s. You help faculty design college courses by helping them create or clarify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the global instructions, and I don't want to change those. So what I'm going to do now is you're going to look at the different chats that I have started here. So the first thing is we're going to interact with this, like, should I base this identification on the History 232 course? May I proceed? If I wanted to, I could have set the instructions for a specific class other than history, or I could have generalized that. I chose to use this one for a class that I'm working on. So I'm going to say yes, proceed. All right, so now we're going to go back to here, the Instructional Lower Division Undergraduate, typical for 200 level survey course. Very good. That's what I want. All right, so now let's go to selecting an OER text. Yes, I have an OER text. I'm going to use the American Yawp. Proceed. Then I can proceed to the course outcomes review, analyzing learning objectives, AI vulnerability. So you can see how I've set up this project as a manager for this particular course development. So that's an example of a project. Let's go into the Google Gems or the Gemini Gem. So here you can see we have the chats here. You have Explore Gems. I have a number of gems here. So if I wanted to create a new gem, I just click Create a New Gem. Give the gem a name, give it a description, give it instructions, and feed it files. I find gems easier to use than projects for this purpose. So I like that. Let's take a look at this one. I have a syllabus agent. This is one that I just pulled a syllabus at random. Let's see who it is. Who is the instructor and what is their email? Oops. Email. And this tells me the instructor is Dr. Clevester Moten. There is his email. And I could ask things like, what assignments are there in this class? So rather than reading the syllabus, a student can get access to your syllabus in a very personalized way based on their interaction with the Google Gem. So that's just it. Next, and finally, let's go to the bonus, and that is the AI assistant, which we've developed here. Now notice the interface is not that of a chatbot. It is a custom interface, and that's where an app really shines. So this is a AI-powered assistant to align course objective or goals to appropriate assessment types grounded in Bloom's. How to get started? Type or paste your goal, objective, or outcome into the text box below. I'm just going to say, students will, when presented a algebra word problem, will solve it. Let's analyze that. Well, it wasn't that difficult to analyze. It says students, it says the level, it needs improvement. It has grammatical errors, redundant phrasing, and so on. Understandability, it's mostly clear, but it doesn't really like it. So the complexity analysis is moderate. Bloom says it is, the solve is the identified verb. It is in the cognitive domain. It's an application. Solve requires to do that. Now, suggest improvements for this item. Let's see what it can do. Here we go. This says it lacks measurable outcome and specificity. Here is a suggested revision. Students will, when presented with an algebra word problem involving linear equations, correctly formulate the equations, show all necessary steps to solve it, and arrive at the correct numerical answer with at least 80% accuracy. That is very specific. Let's analyze that and see how difficult it is and whether or not we like it and want to use it. All right. It says it's good, it's clear, it's complex. We were pretty sure that was going to be the case. Bloom's, it says it's formulate, show, arrive. It's cognitive domain, application. I like that one. So what it's saying is, here are some suggested assessments for knowing whether or not students have learned that. Problem solving, exam or quiz, the detailed walkthrough, or error identification and correction tasks are some recommendations. So that gives us some information about how we would want to assess this particular outcome or objective if we liked how it was formulated. This brings us to the end of Project Gems and Apps, our presentation today for Third Thursday about using these customized AI agents in ChatGPT and in Gemini. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, contact myself or Sonia here at the Center for Innovation.